Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Today we'll be talking about professional networking. So what does that look like? Well, we'll be going over LinkedIn, Greek life, social media, and alumni/interviews. So very excited to have you all today. My name is Danielle. I'm one of the University of Chicago interns here in Mexico City at the Education USA Mexico City Center, and it's a pleasure to have you all here today. George, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is George, and I am the other U Chicago intern here at the Education USA Mexico City Center, working remotely from my home in Virginia. And I'm glad to get to be here with you all today. Now I'll let Danielle continue.
Thank you, George. So today as I mentioned, we'll be going over a bunch of different aspects about professional networking and how to elevate your networking experience to better reflect your experience as well as to help you find new jobs. So what is LinkedIn? So LinkedIn can be used to find the right job or internship, connect and strengthen professional relationships, and help you learn the skills you need to succeed in your career. How can you access LinkedIn? Well, you can access LinkedIn through your desktop, the LinkedIn mobile app, the mobile web experience, or exclusively for Android phones, the LinkedIn Lite Android mobile app. So what are the perks of LinkedIn? What can you expect to use with it? A complete LinkedIn profile can help you connect with opportunities by showcasing your unique professional story through experience, skills, and education. You can also use LinkedIn to organize offline events, join groups, write articles, post photos, videos, and more. So in just a moment, we'll show you a live demonstration on how LinkedIn can be used. But typically, LinkedIn is a platform specifically tailored for anyone looking to advance their career. This can include people from various professional backgrounds, such as small business owners, students, and job seekers. LinkedIn members can use LinkedIn to tap into a network of professionals, companies, groups, and all of the miscellaneous beyond their industry. So absolutely, this can be used by high school students, college students, graduate, even just people that are in the workforce, but not with an educational background. So I will temporarily stop sharing to reshare my screen so you guys can have a live demonstration on how to use LinkedIn and what are some of the features. So I'll be using my profile for today. George, can you see it okay?
Yeah, it's working fine.
Okay. So on LinkedIn, you have obviously your profile. We'll go through the various sections you can add onto your LinkedIn profile and some of the examples that I recommend you to use when using this app. So obviously you have a fun little business/professional profile picture. You can include a banner. You can also include a name pronunciation. So as you can see with my name, you can have your pronouns and the name pronunciation. So you might be wondering, how can I edit any of this information alongside the little tag I have under my name to elaborate on some of my experiences? In order to edit any section of LinkedIn, you would simply just click that pencil button I showed you, and you can scroll down and you can see you have the name pronunciation as well as the customs pronouns. It doesn't have to be custom. You can include any of these in your bio, along with additional information, such as your current position, whether you want to show that company in your intro, your headline. Your headline should include some information about your major/current degree plan and what job experience you're currently working on, as well as any relevant educational information. You also have the ability to input where you're currently located in terms of whether you are attending university or your actual address, though I personally recommend that you simply just put your university address to avoid doxing. There are also various analytical and resources that are private to you through LinkedIn. People will not be seeing these, they'll simply start by looking at the About section. Once again, I mentioned that you can use the pencil feature here to edit your About section. What are some things you should include in your About section? Obviously, your education, what year you are, where do you primarily work? If you're double majoring, double minoring in this example, specify what you are currently studying if you are a student. You can also mention any relevant job experience. If you've worked within organizations before, you can also specify that here if there's a predominant research background that you want your employers or other students in your university to know. So make sure you keep it minimal. I find that most people will read an About section that is easy to understand, concise, fast to get through, as opposed to lengthy paragraphs to work with. That's not to say you should omit parts of your personality. You just want to keep it concise. You want people to understand what you're about. So at best, I recommend 1 to 2 paragraphs for your About section. If you post anything on your featured, be sure to put them on your featured by adding the plus here. You can edit any of the posts that you featured using the pencil. What can be featured? These can be articles that you've written, posts, photos, links, any relevant social media, along with any miscellaneous forms of media that you'd like to share on your featured. Your activity is actually public to everyone. So you will be using the activity for anyone really to see what posts they like, what posts they dislike, what posts they've commented on, or any actual posts, articles, or links that you post yourself. So your activity can be public. There are settings to readjust the activity, but it's primarily not seen as a negative to have your activity broadcasted to people on your profile. Here's the experience page, which I think is the most relevant. Simply, you can add an experience with the plus sign as we mentioned before. You can also, a lot of people don't know this, you can add a career break, which specifies a period in time where you will not be working or you're taking a break. The pencil allows you to edit any select one of these, and you can shift all of these around using the arrows. My personal advice for your experience, we're going to use Education USA as an example. You can add skills that will show up in later sections of your profile. For example, you can add up to 5 skills for each experience that you log. I also recommend that you keep your descriptions to a bullet point. How many varies, but I definitely recommend that you use quantifiers in your bullet points. For example, you want to show numbers and you want to show proof of your contributions. If there's any relevant language information, be sure to put that, as well as any of the tangible experience you've gained from it. You can also put your education in the experience if you have a job within your school. Here in the education section, you can specify more of the miscellaneous societies or organizations you're part of. You can also specify your GPA, what research you do, what major, activities, etc. So here we're getting to the part of where it's up to you if you want to add this information. So you might be wondering, well, my profile doesn't have licenses and certifications. When we go back up here, you'll notice how you can click Add Profile section. This is where you have the wide array of different sections you can add. So if we were looking for license and certifications, boom, it's under recommended. Core is like the giant kind of basic, everyone is expected to have at least all of these. Recommended, of course, I mentioned you can also add courses, recommendations, a featured. As long as you can also add a lot of these as well, but it is not necessary. So let's go back to the licenses section. LinkedIn actually has a wonderful learning apparatus that you can use to get various certifications for any relevant job. For example, about 4 of these I received through LinkedIn, as you can see here. So LinkedIn Learning is basically like a subdivision of LinkedIn, where you're allowed to take courses and answer quizzes and questions to help you get certified. So there's anything from learning how to use Microsoft Word to improving your English writing capabilities, as well as data science and coding. So as you can see, there's some relevant information here about that. You can also add volunteering. As I mentioned before, your skills will show up here in this section if you decide to report them with your experiences. So here's some of mine. You can also add relevant courses. You don't have to add all of your college courses, relevant courses to demonstrate any parts of your profile that you think may be lacking in substantial proof. You can also put any honors or awards that you've had, any languages you have, as well as organizations, along with many other sections that I personally do not use. The interest section is open for everyone when they view your profile. So for example, let's say you're following, I don't know, the Center for Strategic and International Studies. How fancy. People can see that on your profile. They can also see the groups that you're a part of, as well as the schools you're interested/following in. And lastly, the causes section is typically the last section that is added near the bottom of the profile. This just kind of tags people with relevant information about what you specialize in. So that's the LinkedIn Live demonstration. Hopefully you'll be able to use LinkedIn now with some of the knowledge you've gained here today, and with the ability to add more sections if you have used LinkedIn but aren't sure how to use it to the fullest capacity. So I'm going to go ahead and share the presentation once more to also kind of go over the last bits of things you can do with LinkedIn. This is found through the LinkedIn help screen, or not screen, help website. Essentially, as I mentioned before, anyone interested in work can use LinkedIn. It helps connect the world's professionals. And how can we do that? So I walked you through the create your profile step. So other features you can use include building your network. Your network plays a crucial part in unlocking the power of LinkedIn. It'll help you understand what is happening in your industry and professional circle. You can begin by adding your family, friends, past or current classmates, and any other coworkers in your network. You can also follow people, companies, or topics by navigating directly to the Follow Fresh Perspectives page, which displays recommended sources to follow. You can use the LinkedIn Events feature. That's on the top toolbar of LinkedIn to create and join professional events such as workshops, seminars, sales, marketing events, networking events, and more. You can also find a job. On that same toolbar as you might find the LinkedIn events, you can find the job section. I will warn you, as an undergraduate, most of the jobs that I found interested in were tailored to graduate above students. So it's assuming that you already have a degree. If you're looking for a professional opportunity and that fits your profile, you can use LinkedIn. However, if you are an undergraduate student, I definitely recommend you keep that in mind and to look at the eligibility requirements of the jobs you're interested in. You can also participate in conversations. I've also used this feature. You can participate in conversations on LinkedIn. Participating in conversations can allow you to share your perspective on relevant issues and topics with others. You can like and comment on posts. You can also create or join LinkedIn groups. As I mentioned there before, I've been able to join groups on LinkedIn relevant to my experience. You can also use a set of lightweight expressions called reactions. So yes, people can also see your reactions on your activity profile and essentially what you like and dislike about certain aspects of people's posts. So keep that in mind when you're using LinkedIn. So we're going to go open the panel. George, I'm just kind of curious, what experiences have you had with using LinkedIn and your professional networking in general?
I unfortunately have not gotten to like properly setting up LinkedIn at the moment yet, although that is something I intend on doing for the coming school year. Um, I will say though, I have it set up. I have it set up so I can make use of LinkedIn Learning personally, but besides that, I have not like tried using like LinkedIn for networking at the moment. But yeah.
So in what other ways have you been able to professionally network outside of LinkedIn?
It's mainly just the connections that I've been like forming here while working at Education USA, because this is the main like job that I'm focusing on and where I'm able to like network with others. But besides that, there's not much else at the moment.
Okay. As I mentioned before, if you are a high school student, you don't necessarily need to use LinkedIn, though with the rising need for professional networking, I highly recommend that you take advantage of that resource, more so as you enter college or you are already in college. So another aspect of professional work networking we'll be going over today is Greek life. So you might be vaguely familiar with the concept of Greek life. Maybe you've seen the recent TikToks about Bama Rush and people showing off their dresses and all that interesting stuff. And you're probably wondering, I don't have this in my country. It's a little weird. Understandable. Greek life is a term for different exclusives for women that have an association with the university they're founded at. For example, the University of Chicago has various frats and sororities that are used for various purposes, some of which being philanthropy. Others are specifically tailored to help with law students, business students, etc. Some fraternities and sororities have chapters across different campuses. These groups are notorious for their exclusivity and high bar of entry, but if one can become a member, these challenges can pay off big time. Many sorority sisters and fraternity brothers become lifelong friends and colleagues in their professional fields. There are varying experiences with Greek life, and we'll be going over the positives as well as the drawbacks with Greek life. As we mentioned before, they're notorious for their exclusivity, and not everyone can be a member. This is more prevalent in larger state schools, especially within the south part of the United States, some notable schools being University of Mississippi, also University of Alabama. I think University of Alabama is like the biggest one. University of Tennessee, Auburn, all of that fun stuff. Chicago is not necessarily as famous for Greek life, though these definitely exist, and the same benefits apply. So what are some things that you can do in Greek life? Well, I mentioned philanthropy. The main Panhellenic Council, which I'll explain briefly, it's composed of all the sororities that allow you to rush, typically in the fall or the winter, depending on the university. And their big thing is community service. Individual chapters across campuses participate in their own service events, which include volunteering, raising money, and hosting events. So you may be wondering, okay, what are some of these examples? In order to raise money, a lot of University of Chicago sororities, as an example, run their own events. For example, one of the most famous ones is Aerofest, which is hosted by Pi Phi or Pi Beta Phi at the University of Chicago. Another fraternity, Sigma Chi, hosts Derby Days, and another sorority at UChicago hosts Anchor Slam, which is run by Delta Gamma. A lot of people notice the Greek letters being used to symbolize each organization to be shortened also by a certain nickname that's become synonymous on a national level. As I mentioned, Pi Phi is not the actual name, it's Pi Beta Phi, which is a lot longer, but it's simplified, just like Delta Gamma is often called DG. Sigma Chi, I mean, it's pretty short regardless, but most people I've had it called Sigma. The members of our community also participate in a variety of student organizations, The leadership skills gained by sorority and fraternity members have also helped their members in the workforce. This is basically glorified professional networking in the sense that you're raising money with a collective of other girls or guys in your organization. You guys will be volunteering. You guys will declare a philanthropy with a specific organization and be committed to that organization, as well as host events to help get the cause out there. So I have some pictures from the website. I'm glad I got them before I did, because I realized the website had been down this entire weekend. For context, recruitment happens typically around the late summer before you head to university. So I know a lot of universities start a lot earlier than UChicago, so some of them are already done. So that's probably explaining why you've seen a lot of these posts on your feed. Currently, UChicago Panhellenic opens like in 8 to 9 days, hence why I think the website is down, because they're doing a lot of renovations, or they're trying to get that information out as early as possible. So this is a clip from the UChicago Panhellenic website. If you don't know what Panhellenic is a national organization that sort of acts as an umbrella for all of the sororities in the US. For example, as I mentioned before, there's Pi Phi. Pi Phi is simply just a chapter, individual chapter at the University of Chicago. And there's many more groups of Pi Phi across different universities. Here's another picture. This is an oldie but a goodie. This is basically at the University of Chicago. Once again, I think they're actually in the same spot on the quad, which is kind of funny. Typically, they have these big letters that they like to advertise, as well as, you know, they kind of expect people to all dress the same with the same dresses, or different clothing, or same shirts, all that fun stuff. So this kind of segues into some of the issues with Greek life. So UChicago, I think, actually has a somewhat better reputation with Greek life as opposed to others, though that's not really saying much, because the University of Chicago has definitely had a big push for abolition recently, as well as calling out some of the racist and hazing incidents that happen here. So just from the first headline, founded to exclude Greek life, UChicago Theta, and the push for abolition. UChicago Theta is one of the many sorority chapters nationwide to see mass affiliations from Greek life in recent months, as members decry the organization's role in reinforcing structural racism. So Theta is another sorority on campus. This was just a few years ago, where the Maroon decided to address some of the racist elements of Greek life. And there was a large push to abolish Greek life, and there still is. There's also the Phi Delta Theta, which is a fraternity that I don't think actually exists anymore, contrary to what this article suggests, but I'll read it for you. The Phi Delta Theta fraternity returned to the university last fall after a 2-year suspension following a hazing incident. A letter to fraternity alumni cited risk management policy violations as the reason for the chapter's suspension. The fraternity has been undergoing what is called recolonization, ground-up restructuring involving the hand selection of new brothers. I actually have not heard of this fraternity, so I doubt it actually was successful in the recolonization. You also may be wondering, what does hazing mean? Hazing is sort of a tradition in a lot of different chapters. Specifically, fraternities are infamous for hazing, though sororities do them too. At the University of Chicago, hazing is prohibited for sororities. However, UChicago does have the door open for hazing for fraternities. Hazing involves having someone to do something that could possibly threaten their life, or embarrass them, or alienate them, as a means to enter the fraternity organization. For example, at the University of Chicago, I definitely know of a circumstance where there's a fraternity on our campus that forces you to pee your pants in order to join. That's one of the less horrible ones I've seen nationwide. Some hazing incidents actually do lead to the person dying, or even being left with a severe disability. So we're going to open the panel once again, everyone. So asking you, George, what are some of your experiences with Greek life at UChicago, whether that's an outsider or an insider?
Um, I personally have not gotten really very affiliated with Greek life here. I will say though, like even though I haven't really met anyone that I know is part of like Greek life, I've only really seen stuff from happening like outside and from also like indirectly affecting people on campus because um during the time of first year, they ended up hosting like a lot of the parties that were violating like COVID protocols that were in place at the time, which ultimately led to I think one or two instances of like a mandatory lockdown having to be put in place because of the rapid spread of COVID caused by those parties at the fraternity buildings and such. But that besides that, I don't have much personal experience with like Greek life, and I don't really know much of what goes on in Greek life at UChicago.
I think George brought up an excellent point that Greek life is not the only means to network or have social status within the university. I think our university is a great example of the fact that honestly, you don't need Greek life. A lot of students here on campus are not on Greek life. And if you are, it doesn't really elevate or make much of a change of who you're viewed at on campus, as opposed to some of the more professional experiences you might experience with maybe you join a pre-law organization, maybe you do Model UN, or you're doing something else outside of Greek life, which I think in some ways we overestimate at the University of Chicago how much Greek life actually does have an impact because it makes up such a small minority on campus. And that minority, while often can be rich, white, typically fitting within a sort of standard of what we expect of people that participate in Greek life, it's not an everyone thing at the University of Chicago. And that's not necessarily carrying to other universities. Like let's say you go to Auburn. Yeah, no. Let's say you go to the University of Alabama. People spend thousands at the University of Alabama to do Greek life. Here, you only spend like $10 or $20 to get like as a recruitment fee to go through Rush. At the University of Alabama, it's $400. Yeah, no. So it's not really a big thing at the University of Chicago. You're not going to lose out if you're not a part of it. Though I think it's important to understand both like the positives and the drawbacks because some people do find a good sisterhood and friends through Greek life. Some people experience really bad hazing. Some people experience really bad cattiness. A lot of stereotypes can ring true, although also a lot of people think it's just partying. Somewhat true. These stereotypes are what they are, stereotypes, but I think it's good to be prepared to what to expect. And also at the University of Chicago specifically, not everyone parties or not everyone does the fancy, rich formals. Unless you want to do that. That's also there, but there's a lot of different things you can do in Greek life. Some people focus more on the professional aspect. So I'm going to expand a little bit on networking through social media. So I kind of compiled a general list of some of the best apps I've seen used for networking. It was brought to me also, Facebook should have been on here, especially as a University of Chicago student. Most of us are encouraged to join like the class of whatever Facebook group as like a means to get more like knowledge of current events or what people are doing. I know I use it occasionally. So here are the other apps I mentioned. LinkedIn, we already went through. Instagram, I know a lot of you already have an Instagram account. Twitter, I uninstalled. I had it for like a month and I didn't really like it. So there's also that, but some people are able to get a lot of followers on Twitter, just like Instagram. It's just a matter of what you prefer. Twitter is a lot more off screen, same with Instagram. Meanwhile, TikTok is a lot more in person. So it's a matter of preference of whether you want to be in people's faces or you just want to demonstrate a general platform, which is better for Instagram and Twitter. And then YouTube, it has the same issue with TikTok. Of course, you can just watch videos on YouTube and post comments. However, if you're looking to be a content creator, TikTok and YouTube require a lot of video and in-person presence. So keep that in mind. Here's some general tips I have for social media. You want to build a social presence. How can you do that? Depending on what you're using, you want to decide who you want to be on this platform. Do you want to be a content creator? Do you want to be a small yarn shop? Do you like making stickers of cacti? Then you might want to decide an app that works best for your vision. If, let's say, you're making stickers of cute cacti and pug dogs, as a random example, you might not get much from TikTok, aside from maybe having a pathway from your content to your shop. For example, maybe you can use your TikTok just to create behind the scenes work on how you create your stickers or your products. Then that can transition into taking your viewers to your shop. This goes hand in hand with posting engaging content. Think of what you want your viewers to see and how you want to direct them to the ultimate goal. So if you're a shop, I've seen that many people use a TikTok to show their behind the scenes or how they make their products. This counts, as they can also easily advertise what their shop is, as opposed to Instagram, where yes, you can post reels, but I think the accessibility for videos is a lot better on YouTube and TikTok. For Instagram and Twitter, you want to keep it generally not strictly just shop promotion. You want to avoid the hard sell. So you can have a page for your shop, and you can actually use the Instagram shop function as an example. However, you don't want to go on people's comments being like, buy my stuff at my shops and the link. It's very annoying, and it doesn't actually work that well. I highly recommend you simply create a shop post as an example if you want to sell things and post a lot of different photos. Let's say you're just you want to be a political presence, or you want to be a creator slash influencer. You want to focus on engaging content that isn't too revealing of your personal life, and you also want to practice good etiquette. This goes hand in hand with the quality over quantity post. People don't generally like being spammed, especially your followers. You want to keep a moderate schedule in terms of how much you post, and you don't want to be mean to other people if you do happen to post or view other people's content. Interviews. How fun. I compiled a few lists of questions that you might experience if you're potentially interviewing for a company. I call these first round. However, some of these you might only have one interview. However, if you're doing corporate America, you're doing something more competitive, absolutely, you will be required to answer other questions aside from this. But these are some of the most basic questions. Tell me about yourself. Why are you interested in this position? Why are you interested in this organization? Strengths, weaknesses. How do you think you'd make a good fit? Another one I think is also, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? But I've rarely seen this one actually, aside from being at the very end of interviews. George, is there anything else I'm missing here?
I don't know. I think the main thing to be here is like, I think I mentioned it before previously, another time, but the big thing with interviews is to just be yourself in talking about, like trying to present yourself and everything, because I don't think it's definitely not something you could readily script. You could probably prepare ideas for things you might say, but ultimately you just in the case of my interview for Education USA for the internship, I just kind of did things on the fly, and that's trying to promote myself as well, and that's what worked out for me, and that's likely what'll work out for other interviews. But the main thing is to just be yourself and try not to pretend to be something you're not, basically.
Thanks, George. Here's something you should consider aside from the questions for your interview. Attire is very important. Unless specified, you should generally want to avoid dressing too casually. So the most appropriate type of attire you can expect is business. This is applicable for both online video interviews and personal in-person interviews. Business attire can range from mix and match slacks, skirts, and blazers, even to formal business suits, which you might be asked to do, for example, for an economics interview. I've definitely seen the status of clothing elevate as you get into law and economics related jobs. So keep that in mind. I also should specify for online video interviews, okay, maybe you won't need to wear a full suit. At the very least, you want to feel the part and you want to feel confident. So I still recommend you wear a good outfit for your interview. I know some of you probably wear like your biker shorts while you have your video showing you have a blazer. That's fine and all if you can still perform well in it, but you don't want to set yourself in this environment where you're a little too casual. Okay. Some other things you can bring. Please note that most of the interviews nowadays are going to be virtual, just for, easy resource and access. If you do happen to have an in-person interview, you might want to bring copies of your resume. You can also bring a water or snack if it ends up lasting for many hours, or I also recommend to your interviewer to meet at a coffee shop or a bakery or someplace where you can easily get a bite if you end up being hungry, or get a drink. Once you're done with your interview, I highly recommend that you just send a thank you email to your interviewer or interviewers, ideally within the first day after your interview. So, am I missing anything that I think should be relevant, George?
No, I don't think so. I think this covers pretty much all the bases for like other things for the interview.
Okay. For virtual, just make sure you confirm the meeting space that you have, as well as any additional questions, which we will be getting to in terms of the additional interview advice. So, George, you kind of mentioned already to be yourself. What are some other interview advice you have for our participants today?
Yeah, I don't really think I have much else beyond that right now, because that's just the main principle that I kept in mind in my interview, and something I'll be keeping in mind in like any subsequent interviews that I have. Yeah.
Did you have a particularly difficult interview experience, you think, during your time at UChicago, or no?
No, although I will say, like, I did have, like, it's not necessarily related to a job, but I did have during like college admissions time during my senior year, I got an interview for like MIT, and I mean, it was a bit stressful, but I feel like it overall went well because I still kept that principle in mind of like being myself and everything like that. But yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go back to the first round questions for our viewers in terms of my personal interview advice. I think a lot of people generally get very nervous during interviews, or they're just very nervous people in general. They're not particularly confident in the way they speak, and that shows in the way they address interviews. I also think people are a little too afraid to either boast about their accomplishments, or they're the opposite, where they're completely narcissistic about the way they talk about themselves. These are some of the major flaws I think I've seen. I do help people with interviews. Just yesterday, I think the funny thing is I helped one of my friends for a government internship as well. And his interview is actually today. And it's within the Department of State. So you think it's a big deal. But he struggled a lot to find a reason why he was interested in the position. If you don't know how to answer any of these basic questions, not even in a personal, honest way with yourself, I think you're going to struggle a lot with interviews. That doesn't mean you can't practice, but I think you really should consider, even if you need to, why you applied, why you're here. Be honest with yourself in terms of what your goals are, as well as what you plan to get out of it and what you plan to give. Interviews can feel a little transactional in that way, but I think you'll be much better at interviews if you can leverage what means a lot to you, which also goes back to being yourself, of course, but you need to take things seriously. And it's a little annoying for interviewers if you can't answer, okay, why do you care about us? Why are you interested? And you have like my friend who's like, I don't even know why I applied. I don't even know what I'm doing at the job. You need to read over those descriptions again and really ask yourself and really think about it, at least before the interview, so you don't stutter when you actually get there. Speak concisely. It's a lot easier to talk about things that interest you at interviews because you can tell when someone is just making up information, and you can also tell when someone genuinely cares about what they talk about. My friend being a good example. So now hopefully he's going to do better in this interview, but generally the hardest ones are those top 3. You might be wondering, okay, what about the strengths and weaknesses? Strengths and weaknesses, they're looking to gauge who you are as a person. Weaknesses, I've heard people say, okay, well, you want to tailor it as a strength. I think there's actually nothing wrong with being somewhat honest about your weaknesses, but you don't want to bring up weaknesses that aren't relevant to the job. So let's say you're really bad at dieting, which is not even relevant to the interview. I've had people bring up really random weaknesses. Let's say you're looking to develop something better about yourself. Let's say you're not the most organized person, but you can segue into talking about how you've tried to improve your organization skills and you've tried, let's say you're working on your communication so that people also help you with your organization. That's still being honest with yourself, and it's also opening the door for improvement. So you're not just stuck in your weaknesses. And it gives an idea to the employer of what they should expect with you. And of course, the good fit, you're probably wondering, okay, well, how am I going to know? That's the interviewer's job. They ask this question as kind of an accumulation of the first 2/3. If you know why you're interested in the position and the organization, you'll know why you're a good fit for the position. You'll know the skills they're looking for. You'll know what their work is, and you'll be interested in that work. You'll be working with people you've probably contacted or seen before. Those are all relevant to this question. So that just about wraps up our session today. Be sure to attend this week's student panel on support systems in the university, specifically through all our UChicago Education USA interns this summer. Same time, every Thursday, 3 p.m. Central Daylight Time, which is Mexico City time, August 25th. We want to thank you all for joining us today, and we hope that you got some useful information from today's session, and we hope to see you again this Thursday. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for attending, everyone.